They skipped my birthday to celebrate my sister's dog's adoption anniversary. Again. For days later, my mom texted, $3, $200 for the family retreat. Don't delay. I transferred 50 cents and wrote, guess I'm not considered family. Then I shut down the joint fund, canceled their subscription stacks, and reported the last 4 charges as unauthorized. The bank called. I smirked and answered with one sentence. That was the last time I ever invited them to anything. I still remember how much thought I put into that weekend. I had been planning it for weeks. Booked a quiet cabin resort in the Smokies. 2 bedrooms, a stocked kitchen, a private hot tub, even a fire pit out back. I paid extra for the mountain view. I picked the dates so it wouldn't overlap with anything major. Made sure to include both my mom and sister in the group chat early. I wanted to keep it light, just us, no drama, no expectations, just time together. I even texted them both a few days before reminding them what to bring. My mom replied with a thumbs up emoji. My sister sent a gift of a suitcase being zipped up. I thought we were good, but when I got there, only my girlfriend showed up. I waited. I texted, then called. Nothing. An hour later, a photo popped up in the group chat. Bentley, my sister's French bulldog, was sitting in front of a decorated cake that said, "Happy got a day." There were dog balloons in the background. My mom was in the photo too, holding a little party hat above his head like he was a toddler. The caption said, "Wouldn't miss this for anything." My name wasn't even mentioned. I didn't reply. My girlfriend was trying to make the most of it, but I was gone the whole weekend, mentally checked out. It was hard to enjoy anything knowing the 2 people I kept trying to pull closer had no problem ditching me for a dog's adoption party again. It wasn't even the first time. Last year they skipped my birthday brunch to take Bentley to a dog psychic. I thought they were joking. They weren't. The moment I got home, I deleted the group chat. I didn't say anything dramatic. I just removed myself. I was done pretending. For days later, I got a message from my mom. $3,200 for a family vacation. Don't delay. She even included a link to the Airbnb and the PayPal pool. No greeting, no mention of the weekend. No apology for skipping out. I transferred 50 cents. Wrote, I guess I'm not considered family. Then I closed our joint account. Canceled every subscription they were using under my name. Netflix, Spotify Family, HBO Max, even that overpriced wine box my mom used to show off like it was her own collection. Then I called the bank and reported the last 4 family-related charges as unauthorized. The bank called back to verify. I answered with a smile and said just one sentence. I was being used. They didn't like that. First came a string of texts from my sister. She was furious. Said I was being dramatic and embarrassing myself. Claimed mom cried when she saw the account was closed. Then she hit me with, "You act like you're better than us just because you make more money. That's not what family does. No, family doesn't skip your birthday. Family doesn't remember a dog's anniversary and forget yours. Family doesn't show up only when you're paying." I didn't respond. Then came the guilt trip. My mom sent a long email with the subject line, "Can we please talk?" It was 3 paragraphs of her trying to make me feel bad. Said she and my sister were just celebrating love in all its forms and I shouldn't punish them for being close. That I was pulling away and letting my girlfriend isolate me. What she didn't know was that I had already broken up with my girlfriend. She told me not even a week before that she couldn't do it anymore. That I was too loyal to people who didn't care about me. That it felt like she was dating a man with 2 invisible chains. One from his mother, one from his sister, and neither of them were ever going to let go. She told me, "You don't even realize how much of yourself you've lost trying to please them." And she was right. That was the moment I started seeing things clearly. I had been their safety net for years, paying for things they couldn't afford, letting them guilt me into thinking that was just what a good son and good brother did. I never even pushed back. But this time I had. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. But I also knew what was coming. They were going to ramp it up. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the drama, because the money was gone, the help was gone. I was gone. And they didn't know how to handle that. Not yet. They treated my silence like it was temporary, like I'd come crawling back once I cooled down. When the Netflix account stopped working, my sister texted me, "Is this your way of being petty?" My mom asked if my card had expired. I didn't reply to that. Was Monday. On Tuesday, they found out I closed the joint account. My mom left a voicemail that started calm and ended with her crying. She said things like, "This isn't how we fix things, and family doesn't do this to each other." I didn't call her back. I didn't fix anything. I let her sit with it. Wednesday, a box of muffins showed up outside my door. No note. I could guess who it was from. I left it there. It rained that night. But the most ridiculous part was what they said to my cousin Brian. He flew in from Colorado to visit. Hadn't been back in a couple years. He showed up at their house, my mom's place. They told him I was acting out and cutting everyone off for no reason. They said I had been changing since I started dating my ex. That I'd become ungrateful, cold. I wasn't even surprised. It was what they always did. Control the narrative. Spin it until they came out looking like martyrs. Brian called me later that night. "You good?" he asked. I hesitated, then just said, "I'm done." He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Come to my parents' place tomorrow. Don't bring anything. Just show up." I did. They live about an hour out. Big house, quiet neighborhood. I walked in and Brian was already waiting in the living room with his parents. 10 minutes later, my mom and sister showed up too. Brian had invited them. I didn't know that until I saw them walk in. My mom looked surprised. My sister looked annoyed. Brian didn't waste time. "I wanted you all here," he said, "because I heard your side. Now you're going to hear his and then you're going to hear mine." He went off. He laid out everything I had told him, everything he had learned piece by piece. The years I covered for them financially, the birthday they skipped for a dog, the vacation guilt trip, the constant manipulation masked as family loyalty. He didn't yell, he didn't insult. He just told the truth, and he did it with a calm, unshakable tone that made it impossible to interrupt. "You treat Jeremy like a bank account," he said. "Not a brother, not a son, a service you expect on demand." And the second he says no, he's suddenly selfish. My mom tried to defend herself. She said she was hurt, that she never asked for that much. My sister cut in and claimed I was overreacting. Brian didn't budge. "You think he broke off with his girlfriend because of money?" he asked. "No, she left because she saw what you two were doing to him and he couldn't even see it. That's how deep you had him wrapped." Then he looked at me. "You're not crazy. You're not selfish. You're just done. And that's okay." I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Watching their faces twist. Watching them realize they couldn't guilt their way out of this one. That was enough. After they left, Brian's dad came out and handed me a beer. "You can stay here as long as you want," he said. "Might be time you focused on your own life for a change." And just like that, I realized something. I'd spent years giving everything to people who only saw me when they needed something. Now, it was time to give something to myself. I didn't go back to my apartment for 7 days. I told myself it was temporary, just until things cooled down. But every time I thought about walking back into that space, I felt the same heaviness in my chest I'd been carrying for years. Brian's parents never asked questions. They didn't cry. They just made space. The first night, and Leah set a plate for me without saying a word. I sat down like I had been there 100 times before. I hadn't. I barely knew these people. Not really. But somehow I felt more seen in that one dinner than I had in every birthday, holiday, and group text with my own family. Brian and I started doing morning runs the very next day. I was out of shape and embarrassed, but he didn't say anything about it. He didn't have to. We just ran until I couldn't anymore. Then we'd walk the rest of the way and talk about whatever. Work, life, podcasts, nothing deep, just normal stuff. And it felt good, like I wasn't being measured against some invisible scoreboard I didn't agree to. By the third day, I stopped checking my phone. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't need to know what they were saying anymore. I already knew the script. My mom would play the victim. My sister would escalate. Then they'd swap roles when one got tired. I was finally off that stage, but the messages still came. My sister sent a text that just said, "You win." I stared at it for a while, trying to figure out what, when, even meant in her mind. Was this a competition to her? Was standing up for myself considered some kind of betrayal, like I had cheated by not playing the part they wrote for me? I didn't reply. That same day, my mom posted a picture of Bentley on Facebook. He was wearing a raincoat, sitting in front of the same bakery they ditched my birthday for. The caption read, "Some people abandon their family. Dogs never do." No one was tagged, but it didn't need to be. People like her don't need names to draw blood. Brian saw the post and shook his head. "You know what that is?" he said. "Withdraw. You pulled the plug, and now they don't know how to function without your electricity." That line stuck with me so much that I started writing little things like that down on scraps of paper, in my phone's notes app, anywhere I could keep track of what I was learning, because I was learning a lot. Like how my default mode was guilt. How I had built my entire sense of worth around being needed. How I never stopped to ask if the people needing me were even good for me. How I called it loyalty, when really it was fear. Fear of not being loved unless I was useful. So, I started pulling away from more than just my family. I canceled my old bank account and opened a new one. Got my own Netflix, my own Spotify, changed every password, went through my email and unsubscribed from anything that had my sister's name attached to it. I even went through my phone contacts and deleted people I hadn't talked to in over a year. People who only reached out when they needed a ride, a reference, or a quick favor. It was like I had been hoarding people out of obligation. Brian saw what I was doing, and one night while we were playing video games, he paused and said, "You're not bitter. You're just finally making space." That line went in the notes app too. By the end of the week, something in me had shifted. Not in a loud, dramatic way. It was subtle, quiet, but real. I went back to my apartment on a Sunday morning. It felt different, like it belonged to someone new. I cleaned out my fridge, opened all the windows, played music that I actually liked instead of whatever had been playing on the shared family playlist. Then I sat down and opened a blank notebook. At the top of the first page, I wrote plans that don't include them. It was a short list at first, but it was mine. Start working out consistently. Take one weekend trip alone. Sign up for something, anything that isn't tied to work. Meet new people who don't know my family. Don't check your phone when you know who it's from. It wasn't a revenge list. It wasn't a manifesto. It was just a blueprint for something I hadn't had in a long time, my own life. I knew they wouldn't understand. I knew they'd feel betrayed. And I knew it would only get worse from here. But I also knew something else. They were going to hate who I was becoming, and I didn't care. A week turned into 2, then 3. No contact, no updates, no explanations. My mom tried. She called from a different number, left a voicemail about how families go through phases and how she was always here if I decided to come back to my senses. That was her phrasing. Come back to your senses. As if finally choosing myself was some kind of mental break. My sister wasn't as subtle. She sent a screenshot of her phone bill with a snarky, "Guess who's not on the family plan anymore" beneath it. She followed it with a middle finger emoji. I didn't answer. I think that's when it clicked for them. I wasn't just taking space. I had actually cut the cord, and that's when they started spiraling for real. First came the photos on social media. Old ones, family dinners, holidays. Me smiling with them in the background like a prop. My mom captioned one, "Nothing stronger than family." My sister commented under it, "Some people forget who fed them when they were broke." That was bold considering I was the one who paid off her last credit card bill less than a year ago. Then came the fake concern. My mom called Brian's parents. She told them she was worried about me, that I had changed, and that she hoped they weren't encouraging the distance. Brian's mom laughed. Literally laughed. Then she told her that she should probably worry more about her own behavior than mine. That was the last call my mom made to her. Brian and I kept doing our thing. Morning runs, weekend hikes, trying new food spots. I started sleeping better. I wasn't checking my phone every 10 minutes, waiting for a passive-aggressive guilt trip to land. I had space in my head now. It was strange at first, like silence after a constant siren. So, I filled it with things that actually mattered. I got back into lifting weights. Just 30 minutes at first, then longer. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I wasn't posting gym selfies or tracking macros. I just wanted to feel strong again in my body, in my own skin. Brian introduced me to a couple of his friends who were into photography. I tagged along once and ended up buying a used DSLR the following week. Not because I needed a hobby, but because I realized I never gave myself permission to explore anything that wasn't practical or profitable. For the first time in my adult life, I was actually discovering who I was outside of what I could provide. Then something unexpected happened. I got a message from someone I hadn't seen in years, Sarah, a childhood friend who had moved away right after high school. She saw one of Brian's tagged photos of me hiking and messaged, "Didn't expect to see you smiling on a mountaintop. You good?" We started talking, just catching up. Nothing heavy, but it reminded me how many parts of myself I had tucked away just to keep peace with people who weren't worth the war. And while all of this was happening, my mom and sister kept pushing. I heard through a relative that they were angry, that they felt abandoned, that I had chosen strangers over blood. They couldn't process the fact that I wasn't bending, that there were no more favors, no more subscriptions, no more money quietly deposited into the joint account they forgot was tied to me in the first place. They started acting like kids who had their toys taken away. Except this wasn't about toys. It was about power, and I had taken mine back. That weekend, Brian and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. He handed me a beer and said, "You know you're not done, right?" I looked at him. He said, "This is just the start." He was right, because I wasn't just getting back at them anymore. I was getting back to me. It had been a little over 2 months since I last saw my mom or sister. I was still blocking their numbers, still ignoring the shared family group chat that, as far as I knew, had turned into a thread of them talking to themselves. Then, out of nowhere, they showed up again, not at my apartment this time. They weren't that bold anymore, but at my work. My sister walked right into the building's lobby and asked the receptionist to call me down. Apparently, she said it was an emergency. When I came down, she was standing there in designer sunglasses holding a manila envelope. I thought it was something serious for a second, like maybe someone died. It wasn't. She handed it to me and said, "We're applying for a small business grant. We need your signature as a co-signer for the application." Just like that. No. Hi. No. Sorry. No acknowledgement of everything that had happened. Inside the envelope were documents for a dog grooming business she was trying to open with one of her friends. I flipped through them and saw my name already typed in as the financial backer. "You filled this out already?" I said, "Yeah." She replied like it was obvious. "You know, Mom and I are trying to build something real. We thought you'd support that." It took everything in me not to laugh. I handed the envelope back and said, "You can try being real by starting with your own money." Then I walked away. That night, my mom emailed me. It was 4 paragraphs long. It started with a compliment about how proud she was of the man I was becoming, then quickly turned into a passive-aggressive lecture about how not everyone has the opportunities I've had, and how this business could help the family as a whole. She ended it with a line that said, "You're not a stranger on the street. You're our blood." I didn't answer. I didn't even finish reading it. Instead, I booked a flight. I picked a place at random. Sedona, Arizona. I had never been. Didn't know anyone there. That was the point. When I got there, it was like stepping into a different life. The red rocks, the quiet air, the smell of desert heat. It was the kind of beauty that didn't need an audience. It just existed, like it had nothing to prove. I spent 4 days there hiking, eating alone, journaling, taking photos, watching the sky turn orange and pink every night. I didn't check email once, didn't post a thing. For the first time, I wasn't performing for anyone. I wasn't waiting to be seen. I was just living. On the last night, I got a notification. Not from my mom. Not from my sister, from Brian. He posted a photo of us from a hike weeks ago. The caption just said, "Some people lose family, others lose weight." The comments were mostly jokes, but I saw one that made me pause. It was from my mom. She commented, "Glad he found a new family. Hopefully they pay better." I stared at it for a while, not because I was hurt, because I wasn't. I expected her to act like that, but because it was the first time I fully accepted who she really was, who they both were, and more importantly, who I wasn't anymore. I wasn't their son the way they defined it. I wasn't their provider, their crutch, their plan B. I was just me. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. Sedona was just the beginning. After that, I started planning more trips. Places I had dreamed about but never prioritized. Not because I didn't want to go, but because they always made me feel guilty for doing anything without them. Now, I wasn't asking for permission. They stayed angry, still posting passive jabs, still trying to bait me into answering, still telling mutual relatives that I had changed. They were right. I had, and I wasn't coming back. It had been 6 months since the break. Not a fight, not a falling out, a break like a bone finally giving under too much weight. And once it cracked, I didn't patch it up this time. I let it heal differently. I had visited 7 countries since then. I had slept in hostels, in cabins, on trains. I had hiked through Slovenia with a group of strangers who became friends by the 3rd day. I had shared a bottle of wine with a Brazilian couple on the coast of Spain. I had seen things, beautiful, simple things that didn't need to be posted or approved by anyone. The silence from my family didn't feel cold anymore. It felt necessary until the letter arrived. Came in an envelope with shaky handwriting and no return address. I opened it expecting something vague or manipulative, but it wasn't from my mom. It was from my sister. It started with, "I know you probably won't believe anything I say, but I wanted to try." She wrote about how things had changed since I cut them off. She lost her job. Bentley the dog got sick and needed surgery. The business idea never took off. My mom had stopped going out much. She said she wished I had stayed in their lives because things have only gotten worse without you. Then the last paragraph hit differently. She wrote, "I used to think you were just the one who had it easier, but now I realize you just worked harder than all of us. I didn't see it then, and I'm not sure I deserve your forgiveness now. No demands, no guilt, just that." I sat with that letter for 2 days before I decided what to do. I didn't write back, but I scanned it and sent it to Brian. His reply, "You finally got the truth, but that doesn't mean you owe them your life again." And he was right, because while they were struggling, I wasn't. I wasn't thriving because they were failing. I was thriving because I had finally made space for my own growth, something I had postponed for years. By then, I was already in Lisbon. I had just signed a lease for a small studio apartment with a view of the river. I had my own income, my own rhythm. I joined a gym. I met people who talked about books and politics and never once asked me to Venmo them rent. People who didn't assume I was the responsible one just because I was quiet. People who knew me as just Jeremy. And then another message came. This time it was from my mother. Not an email, not a comment. A handwritten letter like my sister's. But hers was different. Short. Only one line stood out. "I hope you're happy, even if we're not part of it." That's when I knew this wasn't going back to what it was. There was no reunion dinner, no closure phone call. The damage wasn't just emotional. It was systemic, built into the way they saw me as a resource, not a person. But they were starting to feel it now. The loss, the absence of someone who had always absorbed the shock. They were hurting, but so was I. For years, I just didn't show it. Now, the difference was I had chosen healing. They had chosen regret. The biggest surprise came on my last day in Lisbon before renewing my visa. I got a call from Brian. He was flying in just for a few days. He said he wanted to see where I'd landed after everything. We met at a small cafe overlooking the city. He raised his glass and said, "Remember when all this was just a notebook list?" I smiled. "Yeah. Plans that didn't include them." "Well," he said, "you followed through. That night we talked about how strange it is. The way freedom can feel like grief at first. How sometimes choosing yourself means burying the version of you that needed to be needed. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry about any of it. Not about the money, not the missed birthdays, not even Bentley. I felt untied. My family still doesn't talk to me. Or maybe they do, just not to me. Maybe to the version of me they still hold in their heads. The one who'd drop everything. The one who wouldn't leave. The one who'd smile and pay and keep the peace. That version's gone. The real me, he's in Lisbon with a camera in one hand, a coffee in the other, and not 1 ounce of guilt left to carry. I don't hate them, but I don't miss them either. And that's how I know I'm finally free.